The amount of opportunity and work that can come to you just from simply networking alone is amazing and incredible. But there is a right way and kind of a wrong way, or just a better way to approach it. So we're going to talk about it in today's episode. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to the Gold Biz Podcast with me, your host, Rachel Traxler. Today, we are uncovering what networking with vendors looks like and how that affects your bookings and how to get more inquiries from it. And I have a really special guest with me today. His name is John Bunn, and he is with How to Film Weddings. And I was recently just on his podcast, and now I brought him on mine. We had two really awesome conversations. And today, we're talking about what it looks like to network with other vendors, how to do it, especially if you have never worked with someone before, how to figure out who to network with, and how to have like different buckets of clients or vendors and what that process looks like and how to systemize it as well in a really simple way. So this is a really good episode. Make sure to open up your notes app and get ready to take notes. But before we do so, make sure to leave a review on the Gold Biz Podcast. If you are loving it, I love to read your reviews and love to see your kind words. So if you do love the Gold Biz Podcast, would love for you to leave a review. But without further ado, let's dive into it. Awesome. Well, I have with me John here. John, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to chat today. Excited to talk.
Oh, this will be fun. So I was just on your podcast recently. So this is a fun little episode swap. And this is really fun because I know you work with a lot of videographers, filmmakers, kind of the same thing, though. We can take these same strategies that we both have and implement it to both photographers and videographers, which I think is so cool. And today we're going to be talking about kind of like networking with vendors and how that can help increase your bookings and just kind of what that whole process looks like. So I would just love to hear from you and just kind of give you the floor right away about what networking and connecting with vendors kind of looks like for you.
Yeah, so I've been doing wedding films for 17 years now, and I didn't pay attention to the networking side of things for like the first 8 years. I was just the videographer that was kind of thinking about his stuff, trying to stay out of the way, fly on the wall, not being memorable. And I had a good photographer friend as I got into some more luxury style weddings, some higher paying clients, and I saw how he acted and how he networked, and I was like, wait a sec. Just by chance, I did a wedding with him. And then I was like, your photos are good. They're not the best I've ever seen, but you're the one charging the most in town. What gives? And he kind of took me under his wing and was like, man, you've got to be networking. You've got to be connecting with people. And then the experience that you give, I'm looking at networking in two different buckets, the vendor relationships, and then also the couples, their families, the wedding party, and so I'm thinking the whole time now for the last 7-8 years, how I can make an impression that's not cringy. That's, it's so much more about, like I tell this to our students, our mastermind group or whatever all the time. It's so much more than filming or photographing the wedding. It's the experience you give the couple. And so networking to me, I've made that shift and really put a focus on how I can build a relationship and not try to, score on the first date with a new relationship. Or, we say walk up to the bar and ask someone to marry you. That's not the way to go about it. You want to walk up and say, can I sit down? And then you want to say, hey, can I grab you a drink? Or can, I grab your Snapchat or your number? You slowly work this process. And so I've been doing that. And I look at my network as a funnel as well and say, how many people can I get to know that I exist? And how can I get them to, warm up to me so that they become fans of me and start referring me? And if you don't know, the repeat business in the wedding industry isn't great. And if you are getting the same couple multiple times for different weddings, that might happen once or twice in your career. So having that network of vendors and other people in your community referring you pays off long term. I mean, it's that, planting that seed now so that the tree grows over the next 5-6 years, and then it's producing that fruit for you continuously.
Ooh, I love that. And I love that you specifically talked about having like two buckets and two different types, because then you have you have your client base and like who they know and the people at the wedding, the guests at the wedding. Then you have your vendors who are working in the industry and are familiar with the industry. So I love the idea of like looking at it as two buckets. Now, do you have different approaches for the way you approach networking with these two different buckets here?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously it's different. I'm as a wedding filmmaker, I'm really trying to network really well with planners and photographers because they're up the food chain most of the time. And, I work with a photographer they love me. I want them to refer me because we're booking the same kinds of weddings. And so as a destination, traveling wedding filmmaker, most of my referrals are coming from those kinds of things, wedding planners, photographers. And so, yeah, it is a little bit different than just how I'm connecting with the brides, their bridesmaids, their family, all that kind of stuff. But there's overlying, concepts. And it really just comes down to being a really good person and having like serving people first, trying to take care of them. And so like my bucket for wedding planners, I just worked with this. I did a destination in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, and met this new wedding planner, Emily. I met her last July because the bride booked me first, actually. And so I introduced myself. I sent a DM. I didn't just cold call her. I was like, hey, I'm John. I'm filming Bailey and Avery's wedding next April. And so we followed each other. We sent a couple DMs, and I didn't talk to her too much until 2-3 months before the wedding when we started talking about the event itself. And then I slowly warmed her up to where this morning she sent me a text, and we're actually we filmed that wedding with her. She was great. Like, we had a great time. I really warmed her up. I sent her, video reels afterwards and hooked her up and just like really took care of her. She's referred me like 6 or 7 weddings since April now. And I'm working with her with a client in October. She sent me a text and was like, how's my favorite person besides my husband doing today? And I'm just like, what in the heck is happening? But she's my ideal buyer. And that's she's an ideal buyer. And then also that specific wedding, Bailey, the bride, is my ideal buyer. And so the first thing I had to do was determine who those people are. Who is my ideal buyer? And then I start creating these avatars of who they are, who's my, it's not just one person, but it's like they fit this criteria. Once I find those people, I want to go above and beyond. And so on the wedding day, I'm filming behind the scenes clips of the planner and her team. And I'm sending her reels after each day of the event saying, hey, here you go. Here's an Instagram collaboration. Do you like this thumbnail? Do you like this caption? Like, I'm going above and beyond. And she's like, oh my gosh, I have to hire John every time because I'm going to get 5 or 6 really high quality reels. I'm going to get these, anything I want. He's easy to work with. He showed up early. He stayed late. He dressed well. Like, all these different things add up. And then on the bride side, it's like she reached out to me because she was a bridesmaid in someone else's wedding. In Charleston, I did a wedding in 2021. She saw the film. She was like, this is ridiculous. She started following me. And the day that she got engaged, she sent me an inquiry saying, I've been waiting to reach out to you for 2 years. And those kinds of clients pay the most, the ones that are warmed up to you. And I don't know if you talk numbers too much on here. I don't want to come across whatever, but she paid nearly $30,000 for her wedding film. And it was just like, what is happening? How am I getting paid this amount? And it's because the relationship was built for 2.5 years with her. And then now I've got this bride that's really happy. And while I was at her wedding, I made good friends with all the bridesmaids. She had 8 of them. I know all their names. I follow them all on Instagram, and I'm constantly working that funnel. I had a lot of coffee this morning, so I'll be quiet for a second. But, I get really excited about this topic because it matters so much. We think that our work is what's going to sell itself, and you got to have great work. Like my work, if you see it, hopefully, it's something that you would consider award-winning type work, but the network is way more important, than that sounds like a fortune cookie. Sorry about that. The network is way more than the actual work.
Yes, no, I love that too, because it is so much more than just photos. And I know, like your photos are really directly tied to memories and experiences and what you are feeling during those times. And if you can't provide that experience for them, all they're going to do is look at your portfolio or look at photos and not feel that. And that's like the most important thing. And so, no, I think that that's amazing. And sounds like, I mean, if you're just listening, you can realize like all this networking, it truly, that helps, and it does pay off and pay for itself. And so how do you suggest someone kind of get started with networking? Like you said, oh, this bride referred you here and this vendor referred you here. Maybe someone listening saying like, I want to do that, but how do I kind of just get into someone's world who I haven't worked with and I don't have the opportunity to work with them coming up, but I would love to? Like, what do you say on the flip side for someone in that situation?
Yeah, that's the big question. It's like, how do I get the boulder up the mountain so it can start spinning? And there's no exact answer, but the people that I see that are having the most success are figuring out how to somehow get in the room with the person that they want to be working with and not come across as thirsty. And so that might be going to networking events in your community, or, like going to Engage or to some of these events or whatever like that. Slipping into someone's DMs, it's fine. I don't think it hurts, but I also think you get one first impression. And so what I recommend doing is really leaning into who you know now and who they know. And so if I've worked with this planner, maybe they're friends with that planner, and I can say, hey, I'd really like to work with that planner. Can you give me an introduction? Can you help me get the handshake? And you're looking for that handshake moment, but there's just something about, if you're able to get in the same room, if you're able to, take advantage of any and every wedding that you have coming up, where it might be somebody that could be someone to network, looking back at your last couple of years and saying, oh, I worked with these people, maybe I should reach out to them again and connect or whatever. But I think we think of this as, oh, we've got to have 20 different people all in 1 week that we're networking now. And to me, it's like, if I make one really solid connection per month, that's 12 new connections per year. And if I've, 3 years of that, if I have 36 solid connections between photographers and planners and venues or whatever, I don't have room in my schedule anymore. And so what happens is, if you're just thinking about it, how can I get to the room that they're in? And then the other thing I try to tell our students is that you don't want to try to network. It's great to network and be a great person, but if you're a photographer that's charging $3,000 in Des Moines, Iowa, you probably don't need to reach out to Lynn Easton from Easton Events that's on the East Coast that is booking photographers that are $50,000. That's too much of a gap. You can be in the same room at an event with her or different things like that, but who's 1 or 2 steps ahead of where you are in your market, in the next market, whatever. And then use your creativity to figure out a way to get in the room, figure out how to do a shoot with them, figure out how to offer them a wedding for free or cheap or something like that. And then that gets that ball rolling a little bit. The way I did it is that I just slowly kept raising my prices and getting in the room and I was taking anywhere from 25 to 30 weddings early on. And the top 10 or 20% of those had the kinds of clients, the kinds of planners that I really wanted to hook up. And then I would say, oh, this is a big wedding. And so I want to give more. I want to do more. I'm going to give more highlights. I'm going to hook them up with whatever. I'm going to give them that extra rehearsal coverage that they didn't pay for, because that is me paying forward in my business. And so, we have a lot of people ask, should I do behind the scenes photos for the planner, or should I, should I charge them? The planner wants some behind the scenes video. And I'm just you could make $1,000 off of that maybe, or you could hook them up and they will be doing what Emily, the planner from Georgia, is doing with me now, and has referred me nearly 6 figures worth of work since April. And so the work has to be great, but you have to be really good at being authentic to you as a person, and then having a plan for just slowly warming people up to you. That's the other little caveat, is people can tell when you're just after something. And instead, if you're just hey, I want to know you as a person and see if we connect, that's what people are looking for. If you're a high-end planner that already has your network. You don't want some thirsty photographer sending you a DM saying, "Hey, I'd love to do some work with you." So be realistic with it. And then don't just think, "Okay, I'm trying to book a wedding today." Use the weddings you have that you're working with, but if you're wanting to work with someone else, that's going to take maybe a year, 2 years of building a relationship. And that should be part of your strategy all the time as well. So there's a lot of different thoughts going on there.
Yeah, and that's awesome too. And if you also think about it in terms of just offering, like you said, instead of charging someone $1,000, like, can you just provide that and almost think of it as like your advertising budget, because that's pretty much what it turns around and is. So you don't feel like you're putting so much in like advertising and marketing, like that is what it is. And so you can create your own marketing and advertising from just the services that you provide and who you work with. And I don't know where I heard this term, but like I always say, like I love to be the small potato in the room. Like I love to get myself in situations and rooms and opportunities where I feel like people are one or two steps ahead of me, because that pushes me and that opens up new doors. And I just love putting myself in that situation. I like feeling in that way. And so that was coming through my mind as you were also speaking, like getting in the room. And when I look back at opportunities too, I always think like those, I would say there's maybe a handful of opportunities that have truly fallen into my lap. But then if I really uncover it and look at it, I'm like, well, that only kind of happened because this happened or because I knew this person. And so it all like interweaves with each other of, if you think it didn't do anything for you now, like you don't know what it's going to do in the future and all that stuff. And something you were saying too, John, is like not just reaching out to somebody and like looking thirsty, I guess, like you were saying, but also showcasing how you can serve someone, because the last thing you want is someone reaching out to you saying, "Hey, I'm really looking for experience and I really want to shoot at this venue. And I know that you like, do you have any weddings there that I can shoot with you with? Because I'm really looking for experience." And it's like photographers and other vendors are probably thinking, well, that's amazing, but also my sole focus on that day is to serve my couple. So I'm not really focused on, oh, you really want the experience? Oh, well, that's awesome. Then come ahead and work for me. I want to know how you're going to help serve me and how by serving me is going to serve my couple and my clients. And so when you are reaching out and making connections with people, like let them know how you're going to help serve them and how serving them is ultimately going to help serve their couple. So don't just, because I think a lot of people approach it with, well, I'm looking for experience here and I'm, this is my bucket list location and I would love to do this. And so that's just one way to reframe your mind about how you're approaching and making those connections too. Have you experienced that, or what are your thoughts on that? I'm interrupting my own episode to give you a quick glimpse into my signature coaching program created for established photographers wanting to double to quadruple their prices, book their highest package, and bring in inquiries consistently. This is my high-level container of go-to photographers who are making huge waves in the industry. And the biggest difference in this program is that we get a full 12 months together for deep dive transformation, weekly coaching call support, 4 coaches in the program to deep dive into specific topics, and a content retreat, all included in one program. And I always say, if you can book one extra wedding from your year in the program together, you're going to see your ROI. And it's just the weekly norm wins for my students. So I'm fully confident that you're going to be able to do that and way, way more. And this is an application, phone call, and acceptance process only type of program. So if you are curious if this is the right next steps for you to just blow up your business this year, you can fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply or get the link in the show notes. I'll be in touch shortly after you fill it out so that we can talk through together if this is the right fit for you. I'm very honest with people and I want this to be a great fit for everyone involved. That's just my heart behind the way I do this process. And I also think that's why my students just see so much success in this program. So don't just be an information consumption overload this year. I want you to be an action taker and start implementing change into your business. So again, if this feels aligned to you, fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply to apply for my Passion to Profit coaching program.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about as we've grown our podcast brand and, we've kind of like grown all of that side of what I do, people reaching out and coming across as like, I need something from you, as opposed to just being like, hey, John, I'm listening to your podcast. It's amazing. This podcast really helped me and I want you to know about it. Like I would respond to that of like, oh, great. So good that you loved it. Like, where are you from? And like the conversation begins. But if somebody DMs me and says, hey, John, I love your podcast. Do you need somebody to edit your videos? It's just like delete, block. And I think about within this whole subject of networking, networking is the long-term game. And if your mindset is checkers, you're going to lose. But if it's chess, you're going to win. And that might be you meet somebody at a networking event and you just kind of stay in touch on Instagram for 2 years before that person finds the wedding that they want to refer to you. Or and the other thing that I talk to our students a lot about is it's staying in front of the network that you already have. And so I highly recommend, creating a newsletter list and your email following and like just keeping those people you've worked with and adding them to your newsletter list after every wedding. And then monthly, just sending out like a branded about what's going on in your life update, just so people can see that you exist. As if they want to unsubscribe, they can. But we live in a busy world. You might have worked with the ideal planner or videographer or photographer, and it's been 10 months and they had a baby since then, or and they're like talking to a client and the client's, do you recommend anybody for photo? And they're like, I can't remember who do I? So staying top of mind is really important. And so whether that's staying in front of people on social media, sending DMs to people you've worked with, responding to their photos, their comments after you've worked with them, and then excuse me, like just staying in front of them with newsletters and things like that. But like this summer, I had 5 weeks off in a row. And as I've raised my prices, I have less weddings. And I noticed that a photographer friend of mine that does a lot of similar weddings to me was doing a wedding at this beautiful museum in town. And I was like, hey, who's doing video? And she was like, they didn't hire a videographer. And I was like, oh, who's the planner? And she told me who the planner was. So I reached out and I said, hey, planner, would you want to ask them if they would want like footage of the reception details and like their sunset portrait, just so they have some video? I could fly the drone for you. But if I'm not being hired by them, I could just come out and film this stuff for you. I spent like 2 hours and am able to build them 6 or 7 or 8 reels. I'm posting them on my social and inviting them as a collaborator. So they don't even have to do anything except for hit the accept button. They're getting all these beautiful details where they weren't going to get video. And I'm now front of mind. And it took me 3 or 4 hours total from leaving my garage to coming back to my garage, editing, like everywhere in between. And that to me, yeah, I could charge a couple $1,000 for that. But like I said earlier, that to me is my marketing budget. And so I'm like, people sleep on the fact that we can be creative with how we run our business. We just think we can only be creative with how we shoot and edit our photos. And so creativity and thinking, well, what's my brand? Who's my ideal planner or videographer or photographer that I want to work with? Who's my ideal couple? Who's my ideal bridesmaid that I want to know that I exist? What can I do? Can I get some BTS footage or photos of the whoever, or like just that kind of stuff? It's like you might swing at 100 different pitches and you connect on like 4 of them and you still win the game. And that's kind of the idea. I'm always just trying to get little singles here or there, little base hits, and over time, 17 years of doing this, I have a network that's full of people that remember I exist. I'm continuing to cultivate that relationship. And then it opens up doors for new events. And I just got back from Portland and did a wedding last weekend in Portland. And the planner was great. And the photographer was great. And we've been DMing and now they're on my network. And I've got a spreadsheet of everyone I've worked with. And I keep track of who they are and where they're located. And like, I'm also, like you said, I'm trying to serve them and hook them up. So if I book a wedding, I'm pointing to Rachel because I like her and her photos are beautiful. And like, oh, John refers me all the time. I want to reciprocate. And so it's not manipulative. It's just being a good person and serving people well. And over time, that is the biggest and best investment you can make in your business, more than ads or anything like that. Outside of education and investing in you, that's the best way that I know how to like just always have a full calendar.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it does really add up over the years, and the smallest things make people, because people don't do them anymore. And so just the smallest act makes a huge difference. And I want to ask you one last question too, is like, is there a way that you like systemize things? I know you just briefly mentioned you have a spreadsheet. Like, is there a good system that someone can do to make sure that you're staying strong in these connections?
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. There's probably a CRM option or something, but I have a Google spreadsheet that's like my vendor network.
Love a good Google spreadsheet.
And I go back every now and then and I just update it, and I have it kind of, that is one thing that I have. It's just like all the planners, the locations, the style, their website, all that kind of stuff, all the photographers, the style, so that when somebody does reach out to me, it's like I'm not randomly trying to say, oh, these 3 photographers, I'm serving the couple and I'm serving the photographer. And then a lot of people do not do this. I think you teach them this a little bit about building a newsletter list, building an email list, and segmenting it. Like I think I have like 400 or 500 emails on that specific list. It's not a huge number. And I'm in a world where you need a big number next to your name and I need 12 clients a year, and they're all paying big bucks. And so that's all I really want. Our educational brand has tens of thousands of followers. Or subscribers. That's a different story. But within the wedding video brand, or wedding photo brand if you're listening, it's like, what if you've had 50 previous clients and you add them all to a newsletter list, and you just kind of poke the bear and remind them you exist and say, hey, I'm John. I'm did your wedding, and I just want to let you know I'm going to be sending a newsletter out every month, just kind of updating. Here's some photos of my trip to Oregon. Here's a little BTS of what I'm doing. Here's what I care about. And I'm just letting you know I exist. If you know anybody that's getting married, gosh, I would love the referral. Like, what if you did that? What if that was part of your workflow? And so that to me is what I'm always doing. Anytime anyone inquires with me, they auto get a Zapier zap over into my email list, and I'm just serving that list once or twice a month, staying in front of people on social media. And I'm not killing myself over it. I'm just slowly working that long-term system. We say crock pots over microwaves a lot on our podcast. And we're slow cooking always. We're putting new little ingredients into the recipe and letting it slow cook. We're not in a hurry. And over time, it really does produce a much better result. So I've got a dinosaur Google Doc. I've got a newsletter list, and then I just am following people and have favorites on social media. I will favorite people that are planners, photographers, previous couples, and I can switch over to that feed and make sure that I'm getting notified if it's a planner I really like and letting me know that they've posted. So I'm just always trying to make people remember I exist. I'm not thirsty. If they need anything, let me know. And then sooner than later, it turns into lots of bookings.
Oh, I think, you know what, John, though, I have a similar mindset, but I also think that's a really good mindset to have, the crock pots over microwave thing too, because I think a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, like we want it and we want it now. We want quick results, quick actions. We want the fastest way to this and the quickest way to this. And I think that shows in certain ways that people, you try to do something. And so I love the idea of just letting it grow and over time and just being aware of that. And I like the idea of just creating like that running Google Doc and just staying in front of people, top of mind. I think that that's very important, and that will pay for itself over time. So I love that. And I think that that's perfect. I love all of these things that you just said. It's amazing. And I think it's really good for people to hear and really good for people to understand. So I love that. Thank you so much for all of that insight. And I always do love to end by asking one question of what is currently bringing you joy right now?
Oh man, so many things. Just one.
Just whatever comes to mind, whatever feels good.
The 2 things that come to my mind is I've been doing a lot of morning reading and getting morning sun. And so that has been bringing me joy. And the other is I have 2 little girls, and I've been trying to, every time I leave the house, to take one of them with me, whether I'm just running to the grocery store or just running to do whatever. And so the 13-year-old, the 7-year-old, they think it's the best thing to have dad like just to be running to Home Depot together, something like that. So those are the things that are currently bringing me lots of joy.
Oh, I love that. I love both of those things. I know a little one-on-one time with the kids, and yeah, you can't go wrong with the sunshine. It's amazing. But thank you so much, John. This was all very insightful and very good. Can you tell us where we can find you?
Sure. Yeah. I love telling about where I can be found. So our podcast is called How to Film Weddings. It's very video and photo like heavy. You're going to learn. We talk a lot about the business, the mindset. So howtofilmweddings.com if you want more info. And the other thing on that is like we want crock pots over microwaves, but also like you teach, the investment into your education, whether that's in a mastermind group that we do or a course or whatever, can shave years of time. And so we have all kinds of things like that, courses and mastermind groups and details but the podcast itself is where I'd recommend people go. And that's just How to Film Weddings. So.
Love that. Well, we'll make sure to link all of that below too. But thank you so much for coming on. This was so great.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you have it. I really hope you loved this episode as much as I did. I know networking has impacted my business so much, and it is a huge blessing, and it can be viewed as free advertising and free marketing for your business. So this is something that you don't want to sleep on. If you have any questions about this topic or how to do this better or how you should systemize it or how you should approach it, never hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram. You can DM me at Rachel Traxler, and I would love to continue this conversation. So any questions that you have, I'm an open book. But if you loved this episode, make sure to screenshot it and share it to your stories and tag me at Rachel Traxler so that I can see which episodes you're loving the most and also share the love in return. But thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I appreciate you so much. And as always, keep shining, and we'll see you next time.